are millions of truck drivers on American roads, and every night thousands of them are out there alone. Not alone the way you're alone in your house with the doors locked and the porch light on. Alone the way you're alone when the last town behind you was 40 miles ago, the next one's another 60. And the only light you've got is coming from your own headlights. I've spent the last few years collecting stories from people who live in that kind of alone. Truck stop conversations, CB chatter. A few messages that came in after people heard I was putting a project like this together. Some of these drivers have been doing this for 30 years, some for 3. None of them struck me as the type looking for attention. If anything, most of them looked like they'd rather not remember. I've heard a lot of stories over the years. Most of them have an explanation if you dig for it long enough. These 6 are the ones I never could quite explain, no matter how hard I tried. If you're new here, welcome to Nightfall Narratives, your companion for the long, lonely road. If a story tonight gets under your skin, that's the job. Let's get into it. Wade's been driving reefer out of Nebraska for 11 years, mostly the I-80 corridor, mostly nights because the rates were better and he liked the empty road. He's not a nervous man. He told me this one standing at a fuel pump outside North Platte with his arms crossed the whole time, like he was cold, even though it was July. He was running west through Wyoming on I-80, the stretch that climbs up through the Laramie Range, the kind of road where the wind gets so bad in winter they close it with steel gates. This was late October, first hard cold snap of the year, nothing falling yet, just black ice weather. 2 in the morning, maybe a little past. He said the fatigue had crept up on him slow the way it does. Not the kind where your eyes are closing, the kind where you realize you don't remember the last 3 exits. He was doing the usual tricks. Window cracked, radio loud, sunflower seeds in his cheek to keep his jaw working. Then he saw the lights up ahead on the shoulder. Amber ones, rotating, the kind you'd see on a DOT truck or a wrecker. As he got closer, he made out a figure standing just past the flashers, wearing one of those reflective traffic vests, waving a flashlight in slow arcs, down and to the left. A flagger, like they were routing traffic around something. There was no sign of construction, no cones, no other vehicles. Just this one man in a vest with a flashlight standing in the wind on an empty stretch of interstate at 2 in the morning, directing traffic into the left lane. Wade said normally he'd have been suspicious. Fake flaggers, fake cops. It's a real thing drivers get warned about. But this felt different. The man wasn't trying to get him to pull over. He wasn't waving him down. He was just pointing him left. Insistent, methodical, like he'd done it 100 times that night already. So Wade eased into the left lane and kept rolling, watching the guy pass in his mirror. And in the 3 or 4 seconds it took to check that mirror, the flagger and the amber lights were both gone. No truck, no vehicle at all on that shoulder. Nothing but sagebrush and a drop-off. He said his hands went cold on the wheel, and that's when he noticed his own lane, the right lane, the one he'd have stayed in, had a sheen to it up ahead that his left lane didn't have. Black ice, laid down thin and even, right where water off the hillside had run across the road and frozen back over. The left lane had stayed dry the whole way. He said he didn't loosen his grip on that wheel until Rollins. 3 weeks later, he mentioned it to a Wyoming highway patrol trooper he knew from the scale house, half joking, asking if YDOT had flaggers working nights up on that grade. The trooper didn't laugh. He told Wade there'd been a DOT worker killed on that exact stretch 9 years back, hit by a semi that lost control on ice while he was out marking a hazard. Said drivers still report seeing him some winters, said the department doesn't officially comment on it, but unofficially everybody who's worked that district knows the story. Wade told me he still doesn't believe in any of it. He also told me that every single time he runs that grade in the cold now, he checks the right lane twice before he commits to it, just in case somebody's out there checking it for him. That wasn't the last time somebody on this list got directions they couldn't explain. Sometimes it doesn't come from a man on the shoulder. Sometimes it comes through the radio. Renata's run tanker out of Corpus Christi for going on 9 years, mostly short regional hauls, but this one happened on a longer run up through West Texas on Highway 90, out past Marfa, that stretch where the towns get so small and so far apart, you start counting mile markers just to have something to do. It was a February night, clear and cold, maybe 11 o'clock. She had her CB on Channel 19 out of habit more than anything. That stretch is dead most nights, but she likes the noise. She said somewhere past Alpine a voice came through. A woman, older sounding, calm, said her handle was Wanda, and asked Renata what she was hauling and where she was headed. Nothing unusual. Drivers do this. They talked a while. Wanda knew the road well. Talked about a diner in Marfa that used to be good before it changed owners, a gas station that had shut down. Small local knowledge, the kind of thing that made Renata assume she was an old local driver, maybe retired, running a scanner just to keep herself company at night the way some folks do. Then Wanda asked her, easy as anything, if she still had that little enamel pin on her sun visor, the one shaped like a horseshoe. Renata does. Has for 6 years. Never mentioned it to anyone on the radio, not once, not that night. She asked Wanda how she knew that, and Wanda just laughed, soft, and changed the subject back to the road. Renata let it go, chalked it up to a lucky guess, told herself plenty of drivers keep good luck charms on their visors. A few minutes later, Wanda told her, casual as a weather report, that when she got about 10 miles up, she'd want to take it slow through the dip by the old rail crossing. Said the wash gets loose gravel washed across it sometimes after rain, and it had rained hard 3 days before. Renata thanked her and said she'd watch for it. Then the radio went to that particular kind of silence, not static, not dead air, just a total absence, like the channel itself had closed. She keyed up a few times. Nothing came back. Not from Wanda, not from anybody, for almost 20 minutes, which she said was strange in itself because even a quiet channel in West Texas isn't usually that quiet. She slowed way down coming up on the rail crossing, just like Wanda said. Good thing, too. There was a wash of loose gravel and mud fanned clean across both lanes where a culvert had backed up in the recent rain, exactly like she'd described. At the speed she'd normally have taken that dip, she said she'd have lost the back end for sure. She looked into it afterward, mostly out of curiosity. Called the county sheriff's non-emergency line, half embarrassed, and asked if there was a local driver named Wanda who ran a scanner out that way. The dispatcher on the line told her there used to be an older woman, lived alone out past Alpine, used to run CB traffic reports for truckers for free, out of boredom, for probably 20 years. Everybody on that stretch knew her by voice, even if nobody ever met her in person. She'd passed away the previous autumn, nearly 5 months before the night Renata talked to her. Renata still runs 90 regular, still keeps Channel 19 on. She told me she's never heard that voice again, not once in the 2 years since, but she keeps the horseshoe pin on the visor anyway, says she's not taking any chances on the one thing that seemed to matter to whoever, or whatever, was talking to her that night. Not everybody who hears something on that road gets a warning. Some of them just get a question they never find the answer to. This one came from a driver named Colton, who ran team freight for a couple of years before he went solo, hauling general dry van mostly through the Midwest and down into the South. He told me this sitting in a booth at a pilot outside Knoxville, and he kept turning his coffee cup in slow half circles the entire time, like it helped him get the words out. He was running solo through southern Illinois on I-57, deep in that flat farm country where the fields go on so long they start to feel like water. Late November, around 1 in the morning, foggy, the kind of ground fog that sits low over harvested fields and pools up over the roadway in patches, thick in one stretch, gone completely in the next. He said he came up on a hitchhiker standing right at the edge of the fog line. A young guy, maybe early 20s, backpack, thumb out, soaked through from the damp. Colton doesn't usually stop for hitchhikers. Company policy, insurance, the whole list of reasons drivers give each other. But something about how thin and cold the kid looked, standing out there in weather like that with nothing but a backpack, got to him. He pulled over. The kid climbed up, said his name was Dylan, said his car had died about 6 miles back and his phone was dead too. Asked if Colton could get him as far as the next town with cell service. Ordinary story. Colton said sure, and they got moving. Dylan didn't say much, stared out the windshield mostly, answered questions short. Colton said he didn't think much of it, figured the kid was just cold and tired and embarrassed about the situation. They rode like that for maybe 15 minutes, through patches of fog thick enough that Colton had to slow to under 50. Then they came up on a bad one, a wall of fog so dense his headlights just bounced back at him, and Colton eased off the gas, focused hard on the white line, maybe 5 seconds of total tunnel vision. When they came out the other side of it, he glanced over to say something to Dylan. The seat was empty. Seatbelt still latched across nothing. Door still locked. He said his stomach dropped clean through the floor of the cab. He pulled over right there on the shoulder, flashers on, searched the sleeper, searched under the dash, even got out and checked the road behind him with his flashlight for a good 10 minutes, thinking maybe, somehow, the kid had jumped, and he hadn't heard it over the engine. Nothing. No footprints in the wet shoulder gravel. Nothing at all except his own boot prints going in one direction. He said the strangest part wasn't even the disappearing. It was that when he climbed back in the cab, the passenger seat and the whole floorboard in front of it were bone dry, even though Dylan had climbed in soaked to the skin 15 minutes earlier, dripping onto the seat and mat the whole time. Colton had noticed it when the kid first got in. There should have been a wet outline. There was nothing, not a drop. He never found a Dylan, not in any accident report, not in any missing persons listing. But digging through old county newspaper archives, he found a short item from almost 15 years back. A young man's car found abandoned on that same stretch of 57 during a bad fog. Driver never located, case never closed. No photo ran with the article. No name that matched, not exactly. Close enough that Colton says he wishes he'd never gone looking. He told me that not knowing for certain bothers him less than the alternative would have, because now there's a shape to put around it, and he doesn't much like the shape. He still picks up hitchhikers sometimes, he said. Rarely. But when the weather's bad and somebody looks that cold, he can't quite bring himself to keep driving past. Says if it happens again, at least this time he'll know what to watch for. Some drivers get followed by something they can name once they finally look it in the eye. This next one, nobody on that road ever got a good look at anything at all. Big Sal, that's what everybody calls him. Real name Salvatore, but nobody's used it in 20 years. Has run flatbed out of the Pacific Northwest most of his career, timber and heavy equipment mostly, up and down through Oregon and into the Cascades. He told me this one at a rest stop off I-5 near Grants Pass, and he told it slow, watching the parking lot the whole time like he expected something to pull in. He was running a load up Highway 138, that lonely stretch that cuts east through the Umpqua National Forest toward Diamond Lake. Tall, old-growth timber pressed right up against the shoulder on both sides, no cell service for most of it, the kind of road where if something goes wrong you're going to be waiting a long while for help. This was late September, a little after midnight, clear night, no weather to blame for anything. He said it started with his high beams. He'd flipped them on going into the long straight stretches, the way you do out there since there's rarely oncoming traffic, and every single time, without fail, right as he clicked them on, something at the tree line would catch just enough light to register. Not an animal shape, not a deer or an elk, something taller, standing among the trunks, gone the instant the light swept past it. He said he told himself it was a trick of the trees, shadows moving as his own beams swept the tree line. Happened 3 times in 4 miles. Same shape, always at the edge of where his light reached and no farther, like it knew exactly how far his beams went and stayed 1 step outside them. Then he came up on mile marker 12 in his CB, silent the whole drive, crackled once, hard, a single burst of static, and cut out. His radio, dash lights, everything electrical in the cab flickered for maybe half a second, came back on. He said his engine never missed a beat, never stumbled, but every light on that dash blinked out and back like the whole truck had taken 1 breath and let it go. Right past that same mile marker, in his high beams, standing dead center in his lane facing him, was a shape he still won't describe as an animal or a person. He said the first thing his headlights caught wasn't the height of it or the arms. It was the feet. They weren't pointed toward him. They were pointed the other way, back down the road, like whatever was standing there was facing him and walking away from him at the exact same time. Didn't move otherwise, didn't flinch at his headlights, just stood there in the lane watching him come. He said he didn't have time to think, didn't have time to brake. He just hauled the wheel over and put two wheels off the shoulder to go around it, expecting impact the whole way, expecting to feel something under his tires. Nothing. No impact. No thump. He checked every mirror he had for the next 5 miles, and there was nothing behind him either. No shape crossing the road. No eyes catching his taillights. Nothing. He didn't stop until he hit the truck stop in Roseburg, and he said he sat in that parking lot with the engine running and every light in the cab on for almost 40 minutes before he could make himself drive again. He looked into it after, the way you do, and found out 138 through that stretch of forest has a reputation among locals. Not an official one. Nothing you'll find in a brochure, but ask around Roseburg long enough and somebody will mention it, usually followed by a shrug and, yeah, people say that road's got something in it. Nobody could tell him what. Nobody wanted to guess out loud. Sal doesn't run 138 at night anymore if he can help it. Says he'll add 90 minutes and take the long way rather than hit that mile marker after dark. Says 90 minutes is a small price for never finding out what would have happened if he hadn't swerved. Every driver on this list found some way to explain away the first strange thing that happened to them. This next story is the one where the explaining stopped working the fastest. Priya's been running dry van for about 6 years now, mostly regional freight through Pennsylvania and into Ohio and West Virginia, back roads as much as interstate. She told me this one over the phone, said she still wasn't totally comfortable telling it in person, which said something on its own. She was parked overnight at a truck stop off I-79 in West Virginia, deep in the hill country. The kind of spot with maybe a dozen trucks scattered across a gravel lot and one flickering light over the fuel island. Middle of the night, no particular time she could pin down. She'd been asleep a couple hours already. She woke up to a knock on her driver's side door. 2 knuckles, 3 knocks, evenly spaced, polite almost. She said her first thought was a lot lizard or somebody looking for a jump start, both things that happen. She cracked the curtain, looked down through the window, and there was nobody there. Not near the door, not walking away. Nobody visible anywhere in that stretch of the lot, which was lit well enough that she'd have seen someone. She figured she'd dreamed it, or another driver's door had knocked something loose, and she lay back down. Maybe 10 minutes later it came again. Same 3 knocks, same spacing, same spot on the door. She checked again. Nobody. She said this time she actually got up, unlocked the door, leaned out and looked both directions down the row of parked trucks. Empty lot, nobody moving, no footsteps, nothing. She locked back up, and she said this next part is the reason she still doesn't sleep right at that particular truck stop. She heard the knock a 3rd time, except this time it wasn't on the driver's door. It was on the sleeper wall from the inside. The panel behind her head, the one that separates the cab from the outside air. The one there's no possible way to knock on unless you're already inside the truck with her. She said she didn't sleep the rest of that night. Sat up front with the engine running and every light on until it was light enough outside that she felt safe pulling out. She mentioned it a few weeks later to an older driver she knew from that same route, mostly just venting about a bad night. He got quiet, she said, the way people do right before they tell you something they'd rather not. He told her that stretch of 79 runs close by an old mining town, mostly gone now, and there'd been a driver, years back before Priya's time, found unresponsive in his sleeper at that same lot. Natural causes, nothing sinister, but nobody found him until the 2nd day because nobody thought to check. Said drivers who parked there long enough all seemed to have one story like hers, sooner or later. A knock. Always 3. Always polite. Like somebody still checking to make sure somebody's going to notice this time. Priya still runs that route because she has to, but she doesn't park at that lot anymore. Says there are 3 others within 20 minutes she'll use instead, even if it means a little less sleep. She told me the not parking there isn't really about being scared of what knocked. It's that she doesn't want to be the one who doesn't answer. I've got one more for you tonight. And it's the one I think about more than any of the others because unlike the rest of these, it didn't end with somebody driving away from whatever they saw. It ended with somebody figuring out they'd already been part of it the whole time. This last one comes from a driver named Owen, who's run long haul out of the upper Midwest for almost 20 years, mostly Minnesota up through the Dakotas and into Montana on Highway 2. That long, empty stretch that runs just under the Canadian line for a few hundred miles at a time with almost nothing on it. He's not an emotional man. He told this one flat, almost bored sounding, right up until the very end. He was running that stretch of 2 through the top of North Dakota in deep winter, a little after 3 in the morning, clear and brutally cold. The kind of cold that turns the snowpack on the shoulder to concrete and makes your own breath the loudest thing in the cab. He said somewhere out past Rugby, he picked up another truck's headlights in his mirror, holding a steady distance back, maybe half a mile, matching his speed almost exactly for better than an hour. Not unusual on its own. Trucks pace each other on long, empty stretches all the time. Comfort in having somebody else out there. He didn't think much of it. Then his CB, quiet most of the night, picked up a voice. A driver, sounded exhausted, asking if anybody was on the channel who could talk, just to help him stay awake. Owen keyed up, said sure, they got to talking the way drivers do. Ordinary stuff. Routes, weather, how much longer each of them had to go. At some point, Owen mentioned, just making conversation, that he had a truck pacing him for the better part of an hour, half a mile back, hadn't passed or fallen off. Wondered if it was the other driver. There was a pause on the line. Then the other driver said, slow, careful. No, he wasn't behind Owen. He was ahead of him, had been the whole time. Said he could see Owen's headlights in his own mirror, way off in the distance behind him, closing slow. Owen said that didn't sit right, because there was nothing ahead of him on that stretch as far as his own eyes could see. Just black road and nothing else. No taillights anywhere in front of him for as long as he'd been watching. And there was absolutely a truck behind him. He could see it plain, half a mile back, holding steady. They went back and forth on it a minute, both convinced of what they were seeing, both a little rattled by the mismatch, until the other driver said something that Owen still hasn't shaken. He said, hang on, what's your mile marker? And Owen told him. Then the other driver read off his own mile marker. It was the same number, not close, not approximate, the exact same mile marker at the exact same moment on a road that only runs one lane each direction with no parallel route anywhere near it for 50 miles in either direction. Owen said neither of them said much of anything after that. The other driver signed off a minute later, quiet, and didn't respond when Owen tried to raise him again. Owen checked his mirror one more time before he let the subject go for good. The truck that had been pacing him for the last hour was gone. No taillights fading into the distance, no truck stop or crossroad it could have turned off at. Just gone, the same way it seemed to have arrived, without him ever actually seeing it arrive in the first place. He didn't get an explanation and he stopped looking for one. He says the thing that keeps him up some nights isn't the truck that vanished behind him. It's wondering whether, for that 1 hour, on that one stretch of road, at that exact mile marker, he was the one somebody else was looking at in their mirror, wondering if somewhere out there, some other driver's still telling this story from the other direction, about the truck that was pacing him. 6 drivers. 6 stretches of American road that all look, in the daylight, like nothing at all. A flagger who shouldn't have been there. A voice that knew things it had no way of knowing. A passenger who left without a trace. Something standing at the tree line that stayed exactly 1 step out of the light. A knock nobody could explain. And a truck that was somehow in 2 places on the same road at the same time. None of these people struck me as the kind who go looking for a story. Every one of them told it like they'd rather not have one to tell. So if you're out there tonight, running some long stretch with nothing but your own 2 headlights and 100 miles of black in front of you, pay attention to what that road tells you. Most nights it's nothing. But out here, on the long haul, in the dark, probably nothing is a bet I wouldn't take twice. Which one of these got to you the most? Tell me in the comments. And if you've got a story of your own from out on the road, I want to hear it. Drive safe, watch your mirrors, and I'll see you down the road.